You're listening to the Bored to Death Bingecast, talking TV shows and movies in easily digestible chunks. Hello again, ladies and gentlemen, and other assorted gender assignations. Welcome back to the Bored to Death Bingecast. I am Jay Winger, being joined by
Sam.
And we're back to continue our Season 3 binge of My Hero Academia, but this is the point where we break briefly from the main narrative, because now we're getting ready for the first movie.
Yeah.
So,
like I was saying before this, it was watching it episode by episode, week by week. It was kind of a jarring thing, but it did say, next episode is this. I'm like,
Yeah, but it wasn't clear exactly what it was.
Oh, no, it was pretty clear. It says, next episode is special, leads into the movie. And I'm like, well, can I just finish this arc, please?
Yeah, because, it's really kind of weird that they put it right in the middle of a story arc like this, but, because when we left off, they were in the middle of their provisional licensing exam, and had just started the rescue arc, or rescue portion of the test.
Yeah, rescue and defend.
Rescue and defend with Gang Orca and his gang of orcas, or whatever, showing up to play the part of terrorist. He literally
just looks like a fucking mob boss.
He does. But then that was part of the joke. It's like rank number 3 is on the list of heroes who look like they should be villains.
Yes.
And you know that Bakugo is going to end up on that list. Or sorry, King Explosion Murder, or whatever name he ends up settling with.
There is a slight spoiler I read about the future in the manga about him.
It's
his official hero name finally.
Oh, he finally picks one. Okay, don't say anything. I want to be surprised when it finally comes up.
Yeah, that'll be like season 6.
Yeah, we don't know because I'm not reading the manga because I don't want to get spoiled about events that I haven't seen yet in the anime. Part of me does want to jump into the manga so I can know this stuff, but that would sort of ruin the binge cast.
Yeah, you have to have one person that hasn't seen it yet.
Yep, that's sort of the rule that we go with for a lot of this stuff.
And have fresh eyes on it.
We want to have a fresh set of eyes, but so this is just a flashback episode to, hey, this happened before the summer. Literally it says we take a break from the provisional licensing exam to visit a class held before the summer training camp, and then that leads into the movie, which you have right there on Blu-ray.
On Blu-ray that I pre-ordered, picked it up when it came out, and have yet to open.
It's still in the wrapping. In the movie My Hero Academia 2 Heroes.
Yep, and
you went and saw this in the theaters.
Yes, I did. I saw this in theaters.
I think you and Nami even actually asked, "Do you want to come see this?" I'm like, I haven't seen the show. I won't know a damn thing of what's going on. None of the characters will mean anything to me.
We actually brought Kitty and Zeke with us for the second movie.
But yeah, so this is going to be
the third one. Third one's announced.
Technically, only 2 things we're doing in this particular binge, but it's a single episode and then a movie, so a feature-length movie. So that still sort of fills the right amount of time that we like to have for this sort of thing.
Yep, 96 minutes.
All right, so I don't think there's really much else to add because what was going on in the previous arc.
You know nothing about this movie.
I don't.
Okay, good.
Because
it's a fun little movie.
Like I said, when it came to My Hero Academia stuff, I was like, when it started getting popular, I decided I'm going to need to check that out. So I shouldn't read anything so I don't get spoiled. Granted, some of the stuff ended up getting, I sort of just found out through osmosis because people were dropping references and stuff to it online everywhere. But I've still done my best to try to avoid knowing too much of what's going on.
Alright.
So there's not much else to add for this intro because literally the arc we've been watching is being put on hold for this.
Yep.
Alright, so that should wrap this up and we'll see you after the binge. While the binge is happening, thanks for listening to our podcast. Please give us a like and subscribe and spread the word. You can reach us on social media on Facebook or Twitter at BTD_Bingecast. The
Bored to Death Clan is part of the CKCC Radio podcast family, including J Bunny's Music Hub, the Race Nerd Podcast, Real Paranormal Talk, Ranking Tracks, Motivational Moves, Girls Who Like, and The Nerd Table. Please consider supporting CKCC Radio on Patreon. And now, the binge is done, so let's get to the discussion.
And we're back. So, the preview episode was literally just side story.
Yeah, side story, but
it did introduce David Shield and Melissa briefly, and then immediately led into it. But it was just it was Deku, Bakugo, Ida, Shoto, Uraraka, and Sue basically doing a practical training simulation.
Which I absolutely love that.
I did like that whole
about
touch.
That episode until it started.
Basically, it's like they're dealing with like a hostage situation with some of the pro heroes serving as in various roles in the scenario. All Might being the villain robbing a jewelry store, and Midnight, Cementos, and Present Mike as people as three of the hostages in the store. But then it turns into what seemingly a murder mystery.
Oh yeah, almost immediately because of Bakugo's inability to be patient.
Yeah, they figure out, okay, we're dealing with one villain and three hostages, and then Bakugo's like, screw this!
He at least had a really good starting idea. Mm-hmm. Sending in Ochako to go up to the window with her float,
with her quirk, so that she could then spy through the window and then signal to them, one villain, three hostages. And then as they were trying to come up with a plan, Bakugo's just like, screw it! And just goes in hard because...
Well, I think the reason why it's not necessarily his impatience, it's they're not coming to his conclusion yet. And he's like, screw it, this is how I'm going to do it. They like my first idea. They're going to love my second idea, whether they like it or not. I'm just going to do it.
Well, and it's just his inability to play well with others. It comes down to it as well. I mean, we saw that a lot of that in the movie. It's like every single time somebody offered some advice to him, he's just like, don't tell me what to do!
But do it anyway.
Yeah, but then he does it anyway. And the whole mystery in the training sim turns out to have been, yes, that was sort of what ended up being the case, but you came to the right conclusion, but you still lost because
they did a whole big love story thing. By the way, when Bakugo blasted through there, villain's dead.
Mm-hmm. Villain turns out to suddenly be dead, like stabbed or something, and Sue does check on the body. She tickles All Might's nose with her hair, and he coughs a little bit. So
and
she's
he giggled because it tickled his nose.
Oh, okay. I could have sworn he coughed, but at any rate, so she's so he's just playing a part of a dead body. And then they're like, okay, but nobody else came in or out of the building. All the other there are no other exits that have been opened. So the person that did it is in this room. And so they question the three hostages, the worker at the jewelry store, a woman that was coming into the store to shop, and a musician that was there to get bling or something.
He said he was getting it for his girlfriend to propose.
Present Mike just going full ham with it, like he does, like he does with everything.
110%.
Yeah, Present Mike is always hilarious. But Deku manages to piece together that after asking the right questions, that Midnight was the last person to enter the jewelry store, and the other two were already tied up.
And the fact that he was trapped inside with a bag and
barricaded with cops surrounding the building
means that someone called prior to going in.
Mm-hmm. And
so they were trapped
because Cementos, as the jewelry store employee, said that he didn't have a chance to call the police or anything.
Yeah, it was already set in motion.
And so Deku puts it together that Midnight must have known the villain and known that he was a criminal, and knew that he was about to rob this jewelry store, so she called the police, and then went in to try to talk him down.
Well, it's probably, he even said that they were a couple, the villain and Midnight.
And when he realized that there was no escape, that there were pro-heroes on the scene, as well as the cops, realizing, that it might blow back onto her and thus ruin her reputation, ruin her life, he stabbed himself to spare her that shame.
That was Deku's side of that.
Yep, and then Aizawa, who was overseeing everything, was like, "You came to that was how this was all scripted out." Except you missed one thing, and they're like, "What's that?" And he just literally turns and points to the place where All Might had been lying down. He's not there anymore. He just runs off. It's just like, "I'm escaping." Funny, it's like he gave you a clue that he was still alive, but you came to the wrong conclusion. You didn't tie him up or restrain him in any way. So you failed. You get no bonus points because this was all supposed to be taking place before the summer camp arc, the training camp arc. So
it's like I could have thought of that they could have restrained him with would have been
ice.
Yeah, the Todoroki's eyes.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you would have had him laying there freezing his ass off.
This is true, but at any rate, it was and at the end, All Might goes and checks an email that he'd received before the whole thing, which was from Melissa Shield, the daughter of a friend of his from when he was training in America as an exchange student, basically inviting him to come to Island, like Innovation Island or whatever.
Something like that, yeah.
And because they're, the Expo is coming up, and she wants to surprise her father, and All Might's allowed to take a +1, so he literally runs to Deku and is like, "You want to come with me?" And he's like, "Sure." It's like, "Great, go pack your bag. We're leaving right now." And it's like, the jet won't wait forever. It's just like, what?
Yeah, you got a private jet invitation.
Mm-hmm. And that led into the movie, Two Heroes, which is all set on the island. And we think at first it seems like it's just going to be All Might and Deku on this. And then it turns out practically all of Class 1A is there also. For various reasons. Momo's father is an investor in several of the companies that helped make the island.
And she had a couple +1s.
She had a couple of +1s. So she brought Uraraka and
had a little gambling
and Jiro
between the other girls to see who would accompany her.
Mm-hmm. Mineta and Kaminari both basically, they found out that like the restaurants and whatnot needed more servers for the expo, so they signed up.
They're like, "Oh, we're gonna get paid. We're gonna get a free trip to the island,
and we'll get to see a bunch of hot ladies." And naturally, after all, they showed up. Turns out Ida's there. So is Kirishima and Bakugo and Shoto, all for various reasons.
I'm not sure if everyone else is, but I know Shoto was being there representing his father.
Yeah, his father had been invited as the number 2 hero, but Shoto went in his place. Bakugo got invited because he placed number 1 at the sports festival,
and he had a +1.
And he had a +1, so he brought Kirishima.
Yeah, Shoto, I think, was there not only for representation of his dad, but his father's hero
agency.
Mm.
Regardless, and we thought it was just them, but then it turned out all the others were there, just like in hotel rooms. They didn't factor into the plot at all.
Oh, they were just there having some side stuff,
playing Uno in their hotel rooms. Literally playing Uno. But anyway, when they arrive, Deku meets Melissa, who is, her dad, Professor David Shield, is basically one of the top support types in the world. He helped make Island. He's developed all sorts of technology for hero support and studies quirks and everything. That's literally what the island is for. It's like there's no restraints on quirk usage.
You'd think that the support courses at UA would be invited.
You would think. That's probably an oversight on the creator's part, but Melissa thinks of All Might as Uncle Might. Just a funny little thing, and she meets Deku and learns about his quirks. Sort of notices that it's similar to All Might's, but she doesn't put two and two together. Not like Dave does by the end of the movie. Although I think in his case he doesn't know it's the same quirk. It's just that he is All Might's successor.
Pretty much.
But Dave does know that All Might was seriously injured in his battle with All for One, and knows that he can't maintain his muscle form all the time. But when he meets with All Might during all this, he realizes that his quirk is getting weaker. Because, he's passed it on, so he only has so much power left in him. As we then find out in the All for One fight, which takes place after this, obviously. But, so he's just worried about what that's going to mean for the world, because, if the symbol of peace can no longer do his job, suddenly, that's going to destabilize everything.
He was mentioning how far crime has gone down in Japan from him being
simply being there.
And then all the other places, it's like...
it's like we could really use you in America. Sort of thing.
Is like at 20% at a maximum.
Mm-hmm.
Other than that, it's just all villains. I want to see the rest. I know there's another manga out there that is
in the same universe, but not focusing on them.
It's in the same universe, not focused on them, and I think they are they work outside the Hero Society, kind of like
so true vigilantes in a way.
Yes, I think it. I can't remember what it was called. I think it might actually be just vigilante, but I'm not sure.
But while all this is going on, we find out that there are some bad guys on Island getting ready for something. And it's during this big, formal reception to kick off the preview for the iExpo. All the pro heroes are there, including All Might, and the bad guys make their move. They, hack the system. They turn on the island security systems, against everyone and hold everybody hostage. Literally using the restraint tech in the building to restrain all the pro heroes, including All Might. And this bad guy, who's wearing this metal mask on his face, he's basically... It seems at first like he's just doing a hostage situation. We find out later that it's actually a heist, but that comes later. But the students haven't arrived by this point. They've all been getting dressed in their formal attire. Deku, Melissa took Deku to her own personal lab to show stuff off, and we learned she's quirkless. How about that? And Deku very quickly notices the similarities, but can't reveal his own secret that he was born quirkless, because One for All is a secret.
Yeah.
But she does show off this thing she created called the Full Gauntlet. It's goes on like a bracelet, but then when you tap it, it sort of becomes this gauntlet that covers the entire forearm, and it's designed to tank 3 full blows of All Might's power at 100%. And she gives it to Deku because she noticed the scars on his hand when she first met him, and realized that his quirk is too powerful for his body. And so it's like she wants to basically be like her dad and help people and help heroes by being an inventor and developing technology for them. And so she gives this to Deku. That gauntlet comes in handy because when Deku joins the other students along with Melissa to go to the party, that's when everything gets locked down, and they decide we're gonna try to shut down the security systems so we can free the heroes and stop the bad guys. At that point, it basically turns into Die Hard with superheroes.
Yeah. Just them trying to get up to the top floor.
Literally just them trying to get up to the top floor. They get like 80 floors up before they hit a barrier, and then suddenly the bad guys become aware of them because Mineta opens the wrong door.
No, he just opens any door, and
it sets off an alert in the control room. And so we get to see them fighting their way past some bad guys with their own quirks. Like we saw Shoto and Bakugo versus a couple of villains, one of whom was basically like the Hulk.
Yeah.
And the other one had like a matter displacement ability.
That's pretty interesting.
Mm-hmm. But they both ended up getting taken down. We saw that the others all go up against a bunch of robots. There was one guy who could turn his arms into swords that managed to knock Deku briefly out of a hole in the side of a building before Deku just pops back up and clocks him in the face. But in the end, we find out that this heist had been orchestrated by Dave and his assistant Sam. Not you, obviously, but
no, I didn't do it.
But it was a heist to try to steal this invention that David created, a quirk enhancer, a device that, when worn, would enhance a person's quirk without causing any damage to their body or to their brain, which is the problem with other quirk enhancement tech or quirk enhancing drugs. But the problem was the investor.
Steroids.
Yeah, basically. The problem was the investors, when they found out that he created this, immediately took it away from him and said, "We can't put this into production because if this ends up in the wrong hands, we're suddenly going to have, like villains on super steroids running around." And it's like he wanted to take it back because he felt it could help All Might, because he was aware All Might was injured, and this would help him keep up his power. But especially now that he realizes that he's losing his quirk.
Yeah.
Only it turns, and as we find out in the flashback, Sam had just basically said, "We'll hire some actors to play the part of villains to distract everybody, while we do this, and then we can get away and continue our research and try to make more of these things." Only turns out those actors weren't really actors; they were villains playing the part of actors playing the part of villains.
Yes.
I'm just a dude disguised as a dude playing another dude. And they intend to basically take the quirk enhancer, take Dave hostage, and make him mass produce this thing so they can sell it on the black market. And the guy in the metal mask turns out to be essentially like Magneto.
Yeah, it was strange at first. I guess he had to touch the metal to be able to do it.
To be able to manipulate it.
But then, after...
Well, later on, and when he actually starts using the quirk enhancer himself, he doesn't have to be touching it to manipulate it anymore. And Deku and they have this big fight. They don't manage to stop the villain from getting into the helicopter with Dave and starting to fly off. But then All Might, by this point, who has been freed, just bolts up the side of the building and just one-shots the helicopter out of the sky while saving his best friend. And then bad guy puts the quirk enhancer on and goes full Akira. I literally called it that while we were watching it. It's like he's now the whole building is coming apart as he's just manipulating damn near everything. And just
with even slight metal, cables and stuff, is just yanking out of the building.
And All Might tries his best, but gets restrained in wires. And bad guy then grabs him by the injury and reveals that he actually had been hired by somebody else for this purpose, and that somebody was All For One, because All For One wanted All Might to basically despair when he found out that his friend had essentially turned to crime. And you know, it was a side movie from the main story. We knew that the heroes were going to win. It was just a matter of how.
Yeah.
And it was basically All Might and Deku teaming up with the other students running interference on everything. And they just basically double Detroit smash.
Which I said earlier, I love what they do with the animation.
Oh, the animation was fantastic in all of the fight sequences in this. From the prologue where we see young All Might, and I need to talk about that. He just looked wrong in the flashback because he had normal eyes. He didn't have his blue in black eyes that he's known for. I think that might
be because of the injury he had.
Maybe it's just a case of as his quirk developed, or as One for All developed, it just became that way. I just don't know. We haven't seen enough of him pre-injury to see whether his eyes were like that before then. But Deku destroys the gauntlet with that last punch.
Which he was already given the warning before that it could take up to 3
full power
punches from All Might.
And Dave, who, like I said, had been sort of despairing about what would happen if the symbol of peace were to fall, sees Deku in that moment as they defeat the villain, basically in the same pose he remembers seeing All Might in when All Might was first getting started, and finally sort of realizes the future is right there in front of me.
He doesn't have to worry.
He doesn't have to worry. Deku is All Might's successor, and his daughter could basically become his successor. So it's like I don't need to worry anymore. And it was just wraps it all up in a nice little bow, so everybody can go home. Like, I knew the gauntlet wasn't going to survive because Deku wasn't using it in the later stuff. But it was still an entertaining movie, and I liked. Once I realized that we were looking at Die Hard with superheroes, I was like, "This is going to be great." It's like now I kind of want to see something similar, The Raid with superheroes.
Huh.
Did you ever see The Raid?
No. Probably.
I have it. I have it. So that's going on the list. But yeah, it was an interesting little diversion. The animation quality was very good. Getting to see all the Class 1A students cutting loose.
And the thing is, the last time I saw this was in theaters. I had the movie, like I mentioned before, bought it, pre-ordered it, brought it home, and that was the end of it until I opened it today and ordered a steelbook version just now. Because
you love to collect the steelbooks, so
and it's not just
everything
that. I was
you can.
looking through my previous purchases, where I usually get my anime from, and I couldn't find the second movie in there, even though I swore I bought it. And then I saw that at the very top, just released a month or so ago, was the steelbook version of the second movie and a steelbook version of this movie coming out tomorrow, actually.
As we record this, rather.
Yeah.
First full week of December. But yeah.
So I'm like, I have some points left. Let me go ahead and put that on there. The unfortunate part is that the second movie is on back order, but it claims it's going to be here by the 15th, so...
Well, we'll see. Everything is up in the air when it comes to deliveries, because it's the holiday season.
It's not like we're going to run through season 4 before...
This is true.
Before it arrives, so...
Although, if all goes well this week, as we record this, we'll finish up season 3. But that's for later this week. But yeah, I definitely enjoyed this. I'm still enjoying everything about My Hero. Like the extra work they put into the other stuff that a hero society would need in order to function, sort of thing.
And you're still enjoying the diversions we have. It doesn't feel like it's dragging. It doesn't feel like it's unnecessary episodes.
It's not like, oh, this is just filler. Technically,
technically
the special episode was filler, but it was good filler. It wasn't just like, why are we even bothering with this? It's just sort of like this. It was actually presented as, this is something that pro heroes might actually have to do. You know, figure out a mystery because the police are not presently available or something. But yeah, so I don't have anything else to add.
I mean, it's still a solid movie.
It is a solid movie. Still a very good series.
But they definitely step it up in the second movie.
Okay.
So with that, stepping it up from this movie to the next one, hoping and praying that the third movie steps it up even further, which is going to be really freaking hard to do.
Well, you know, hopefully by the time the third movie comes out, we'll have caught up. But yeah. So, yeah.
The third movie says it should be coming out mid-2021.
So we should be caught up by then. Yeah. Season 4, I mean, I don't know how long Season 4 is, but as it stands now, we're almost done with Season 3. We got one more. We got one more binge, and then we'll be done.
Binge of 5 episodes.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
All right. So, yep, that about wraps it up. So, for Sam, I am Jay, and we'll see you in the next.
Zeke. He wasn't in it.
Yeah, Zeke's sitting here, but not saying anything because he sort of walked in as we were finishing up the movie. But for everyone here in the Bingecasts clan, we'll see you after the next binge.
Thanks for listening to the Bored to Death Bingecast. Be sure to check out our library of past podcasts via CKCC Radio or via our YouTube channel and give us a like and subscribe. We'll see you after our next binge.